A while ago, I asked my Discord server about video games and the feeling of home, and every single response to that question mentioned the same game. Some mentioned multiple games, but one franchise was consistently present in every single answer: The Legend of Zelda. This wasn't exactly a shock to me. When I was originally planning this video, it was always going to be about Hyrule. But then I detoured and wanted to feature other games and hear the community's perspective, only to come to find out that you guys feel the same way about The Legend of Zelda as I do. So I guess all roads lead back to Hyrule. What I find even more interesting is that it wasn't necessarily all versions of Hyrule that the community mentioned. In fact, every single answer featured either Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild specifically. Today, I want to explore that. Why does Breath of the Wild's Hyrule feel like home to so many of us? The second question I asked the community was, is there anything that all the games that feel like home to you share in common with one another? The responses all seemed to fall into one of these two categories: an open world setting and characters that feel real. For me, this is interesting, because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are of course considered to be the first true open world mainline Zelda titles. I say considered because I think that's probably debatable. The games have certainly been non-linear for a long time, and it really depends on how we're defining open world. But for the sake of this video, let's say Breath of the Wild was the first open world Zelda game. The fact that Breath of the Wild's open world resonates is something worth exploring, I think, because generally, the term open world isn't always received positively. I know a lot of people who are tired of the open world genre. I think the problem is that a lot of games fall into the trap of using an open world as some sort of checkbox to tick off, rather than because the devs are actually passionate about that concept. Like, for example, there are so many open world games where sure, the world is open, but it's not been filled with anything to do or see or explore. It feels empty and lifeless, and like the open world nature of the game itself is entirely pointless. I think that's sort of put a sour taste on the nature of open world video games for a lot of people, me included. And yet, even so, Breath of the Wild seems to understand what actually makes a good open world. I mean, it has to have for so many of us to call Hyrule home. But how? How does Breath of the Wild not fall into the same traps that so many modern open world video games fail to evade? Well, to start with, I should probably address that I've been calling this game open world because I think most of us do, but that's famously not how Nintendo sees it. Internally, Nintendo coined the term open air because they wanted to deliberately distinguish Breath of the Wild from other, more generic open world games. Miyamoto acknowledged this pretty directly. He said in an interview with IGN that the term open air is a direct result of the fact that Nintendo, quote, didn't want to just make a game where you can do anything, but we wanted to make sure that we make a game where the player is able to do anything, but it's also a form of entertainment. It's fun to do all those things. But where does that fun come from? I think a big part of it for most is probably the overall freedom the game offers and how that serves the open air mode of delivery. Like, for example, you have the ability to finish the game as soon as you start it. You can head directly for Ganon if you so choose. It's obviously advised you don't, but you can. And if you think about it, that makes everything else Breath of the Wild has to offer, narratively or otherwise, completely optional. It's your adventure, wherever you want to take it, and that sense of player freedom and player control, the fact you can literally go anywhere and pretty much do anything you want, means you play it the way you want to. If you don't want to go somewhere, you don't have to, and I think that's a lot different to a game where, say, you have to clear a certain amount of mind-numbingly identical enemy camps around the map before you can progress narratively. Everything in Breath of the Wild is designed to give you freedom and choice, and I think it's hard not to enjoy an experience that literally gives you the freedom to finish it whenever you want to if you're not enjoying it. And because of that, we could say maybe that Hyrule feels like home because much like a home, Hyrule, in Breath of the Wild at least, is what we make it. But I can't help but feel like there's way more nuance to this discussion. Like, the idea of an adventure entirely unique to you is great, but if none of the experience within that adventure was meaningful, then it fundamentally wouldn't work. I am terrible when it comes to optional content in games. Take Cyberpunk 2077 for example. I've always wanted to play through everything the game has to offer, and so when I replay it, I always say, I'm gonna dedicate this playthrough to the side content. And I'll spend a day or two doing that and really liking it and feeling like I'm making progress, and then I'll do one side mission that I really don't like and I simply never find the motivation to do anything optional ever again in that playthrough. It sucks because there are very few games I can say I've seen absolutely all of, but I'm bad with motivation on a good day, and time is such a finite resource that if I begin to even subconsciously feel like doing something might not end up being as worth my time as doing something else would, it becomes very hard to motivate myself out of that. In fact, it's the same reason I start so many games that I never finish. I end up replaying stuff I know I love because they offer a degree of guaranteed safety in terms of how much I'll enjoy my time with them. Zelda games are one of those games I keep finding myself coming back to though, and more importantly enjoying my time in, even when it comes to side content. Remember how I asked the community, is there anything that all the games that feel like home to you share in common with one another? And you guys responded either with an open world setting or characters that feel real. Well, I think that second part is maybe the most important. Characters that feel real. Hyrule is not flooded or oversaturated with NPCs, instead they're distributed much in the same way as they would be in real life. Towns are densely populated, the roads and paths are populated with just enough life to keep the world alive, and hidden in nooks and crannies, caves and forests are other adventurers on their own unique quests. There's a degree of expectation that brings. If I'm going to a big town, I can expect to see loads of people to interact with. If I'm journeying across the map, I might expect to bump into some others along the way. And if I'm out adventuring, I might stumble into someone else's quest if I'm lucky. The reality of that makes Hyrule a treat to explore and feel so homely because again, if I don't want to interact with anyone, I don't have to. I can take myself off somewhere quiet and spend some time there on my own. But it's also a pleasure to interact with those I just mentioned because much like in the real world, each one of them feels unique with their own unique circumstances. They have distinct voices and feelings, and it can be really fun hearing their observations about the world they live in, or about Link, or about whatever else is going on in their lives. Even funner is finding them again later in your journey and seeing if their observations have changed. The amount of detail Nintendo have poured into these characters and making Hyrule feel real and lived in means side quests don't really feel like side quests anymore. They feel like favors for people you care about, or care enough about at least to see how their observations about you change as you help them. I think that's what makes Hyrule feel like home. It's filled to the brim with meaningful interaction, not simply side missions to take off from a list. It's filled with life. Life with a freedom that our real ones simply can't afford. Life that can be lived at our own pace, explored at our own pace, and discovered at our own pace. Or, in some cases, a life that can be lived at all. I'm fairly open about my being autistic, along with how much I struggle with my mental health on here, and the reality of the situation is that a lot of what Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom can offer me are things that the real world is unable to. Being social and communicating with others, however much I might want to, is not something I can do. The real world and real people are unpredictable, and that makes it feel dangerous, and it's hard for me to navigate the complexities of that. I end up freezing, and sometimes it gets so bad that I end up nonverbal for days or even weeks at a time. That discovery of meeting new people out in the world and learning about their lives and sharing with them yours is simply not an experience I've ever been able to have. But Hyrule at least offers me a way to experience what that might feel like. And even better, completely at my own pace, with the freedom to remove myself from the situation if I need to. It might sound sad, and it might not be the answer you were looking for in this video, but to me, Hyrule feels like home because the amount of life, fun, joy, freedom, and discovery it offers makes it feel like a more comfortable one than my own. That might sound negative, but I really don't mean it to. Hyrule can't offer me a literal home. I can't step into my Switch and live in it. I have responsibilities and people I really care about in the real world. But it instead offers me a safe place to go when all of real life gets a little too much. Sometimes we all need a bit of quiet. Maybe some light piano notes with the grass swaying in the wind and the horses grazing on Hyrule's fields. Sometimes we all need to feel like an adventurer on a bigger quest. Maybe sometimes we even just need to be anywhere but where we were for a moment. That's what Hyrule is to me. Safety, there whenever I need it to be. And I just can't think of anything more homely than that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please do consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to hear the things you love about Hyrule, or even other video game worlds that you might call home, in the comments down below.